My agenda. Okay. Do you want to take the roll call?
Yes. Chair Dempsey?
Here.
Member Lester? Here. Member Mitchell?
Here.
Member Smizer?
Here.
Member Starley?
Here.
Member Norval?
Here.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't have the, oh, I got it on the screen here. Item 2, presentation. We save those for later as we get to them in the agenda, or how do we do that?
We don't have any presentations today.
Okay, I figured there would be something there in blue if there was.
Yes.
Okay. All right, public input. Do we have any members of the public that would like to speak? Okay. If you would, and introduce yourself and tell us where you live in New Smyrna, and we'll be.
Okay, hi, my name's Tyler. I live out in Samsula, work for Airgate Aviation, worked there for about 2.5 years. Talked with Arvin about it, but I wanted to get in the meeting minutes and just bring it to everybody else's attention. I know it's been worked on, but we still have no approved night approaches as far as instrument approach procedures go for 7 or 2.5. Kind of a safety issue as far as the wind direction at night. Right now, the only instrument procedure approved for at night is 2.9. So if we had anything strong out of the east or anything like that, still cannot shoot those approaches. So safety impact for us as a 135 charter carrier, as well as an FBO provider, because I'm sure it stops traffic coming in at night that may need to shoot the instrument approach.
Okay. I didn't get your last name.
Lurie, O-U-R-I-E.
L-U-R-I-D?
I-E.
I-E.
Yep.
Okay, all right.
Could I give a brief update on that?
If you would.
Thank you for those comments, Tyler. So our update for you as of today is that we had a survey done. The reason that the FAA temporarily discontinued those approaches is because they found some penetrations into the airspace at the end of 7
Right.
on a recent study. We have done an independent survey, which was done a couple weeks ago. That information was relayed to our engineer, who we have on file as a consultant, and they put together a response for the FAA to review. So we're hopeful that in the next, I don't know how long exactly this process will take, but it is in motion, and I know it's been an inconvenience for sure.
Right. And I do want to state that I love the level of communication that we have with Arvin. It's great having him next door, and we get to talk about stuff like this a lot. I just wanted to bring it to the meeting minutes and bring it to everybody else's attention.
Okay.
Now on 2.5, I know we moved the markings and it was off by 1 inch. Is that right? And is there any news on that?
So 2.5 is in a little bit of a similar situation because it's actually the fence in that road. So that one I don't have definitive information for you. I'm sorry, actually I've got it backwards. 2.5 is the one that we surveyed. 7 is the one we're not sure about yet. 2.5 should be back within a few weeks.
Okay. Okay, I just wanted to bring it to the attention and say that and introduce
So
myself.
what is the obstacle on 7?
It was actually the perimeter fence itself.
On 7?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, for now, yeah.
Okay, great. Any other public input? Anybody else have any other comments that they would like to make? Okay. All right, moving on to item number 4, consent agenda. Consider the approval of the board meetings from January 27th. I've read them and they look good to me. Did anybody have any concerns with the minutes that were published in the packet? Okay. Can we get somebody to move to approve those?
I move to approve the minutes.
Second.
Okay. Moved and approved. Okay. How do I get this to go up? Is this a touchscreen?
Tammy.
I need to do the yeas and nays for the record.
Oh, yes, okay, sorry.
Chair Dempsey?
Yes.
Member Lester?
Yes.
Member Mitchell?
Yes.
Member Smizer?
Yes.
Member Starley?
Yes.
Member Norval?
Yes.
All right. All right, old business. Marvin, do you want to address the
Yes.
airport 75th anniversary update?
Yes. Well, first of all, I'm sure you're aware that recently the City Commission issued a proclamation and the mayor issued a proclamation recognizing the 75th anniversary. And at this time, I would like to hand out to each of you, or with Tammy's assistance, a copy of that proclamation along with a coin that Adam had made before he left, which is a commemorative coin celebrating and recognizing the 75 years the airport has been here after being given back to us from the government, U.S. government.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I had the privilege of accepting this proclamation from the mayor at one of the commission meetings. I guess it was about just a few weeks ago.
Yes.
Okay, 3 or 4 weeks ago.
That's really
And
nice. Thank you.
it was very, very well done. So I took the proclamation to Arvin and Tammy and asked them if they could get each of the board members a copy.
Oh,
Okay.
nice.
So everybody got a copy of that.
Very cool.
All right.
And we want to say, you know, in that, just recognizing the commitment that you all have made to participate in this board, and we thank you for your participation and your time.
What was the proclamation given to?
It was given to...
No,
to-
I mean, did you?
I accepted it
To
on behalf
Mr.
of
Bolt?
I accepted it on behalf of the airport team and the airport advisory board. And I did my best to get Robert over here, Bob Bolt's son, Robert Bolt. He's down in Tampa. His airplane was in the shop and it was being, he was having some maintenance done to it, and an annual and some maintenance. So he was not able to fly up from Tampa, so he was not able to come up for the proclamation.
Oh, so he doesn't receive it. It's the airport that receives it.
The mayor issued it as a proclamation to the city, okay? And somebody has to accept it. So-
Okay, got it.
So I got nominated to accept it, which I did.
Okay.
Okay. And, but I did ask if we could get a copy for each of the board members.
Yes.
And is there still a copy for Robert Bolt?
Yes.
Yes, there
Okay.
is.
Okay,
Oh, good.
because when we can work things out with him, I thought it would be nice to have him
Yes,
come
yes.
up. And he's up here all the time anyway, so he's got a lot of family here in town, so I thought it would be good if we could arrange, maybe do it at the airport in the office or something like that. Okay.
Yes,
All
good.
right, and we'll let people know when we're going to do that. All right, what else are we going to talk about with
So
75th?
in kind of moving on, but still in conjunction with the 75th anniversary, as you know, I've recently taken over as airport manager. I started with the airport in January, and the topic of the airport's 75th anniversary was brought up at that time. I know we had some plans that were on hold due to COVID. There was another event at another attempt at another event that was canceled due to weather. I would like to just bring up and ask the board if they would like to schedule a workshop to discuss the topic of a proper 75th anniversary at some point this year, later in the year when we've had time to talk about it a little bit, and also discuss some other topics of interest that I'll get to later. The reason being is that the thoughts behind that workshop is the opportunity for me to openly discuss in a more informal setting the airport. And you know, you all have been a part of this board, or most of you all have been a part of this board longer than I've been here at the airport. So I thought it'd be an opportunity where we could discuss the current projects, future projects, other items of interest.
Should this be a motion or what?
I was, yes, if someone would like to make a motion, but it's up to you.
Well, I make a motion that we do have a workshop with you to discuss airport upcoming events.
Second.
Okay. So,
Chair Dempsey,
yes?
Member Lester?
Yes.
Member Mitchell?
Yes.
Member Smizer?
Yes.
Member Starley?
Yes.
Member Norval?
Yes.
So Tammy, will you put something together and send that out to us and get a date set up and?
Is there any time in June that does not work for anybody? If you'll just shoot me an email this afternoon,
Okay.
we'll coordinate in June doing that workshop, so it's not too far out.
Right, okay. That sounds good. June sounds good. Okay. All right. Item 5B, old business, the vice chair position has been vacated and the position needs to be filled. Do we have any nominations for
I
vice?
nominate Jim Starley for vice chairman.
I'll second that.
Do we have any other nominations? I think that's great. So we've got it moved and
Seconded.
seconded.
Yes.
Okay.
So Chair Dempsey?
Yes.
Member Lester?
Yes.
Member Mitchell?
Yes.
Member Smizer?
Yes.
Member Starley?
Yes.
Member Norval?
Yes.
Great.
Congratulations.
Thank you. This is fine.
Welcome.
That's kind of the way it happened to me.
Glad you said yes.
I think I had about as much experience with this board as you did when I got the vice chair. Thank you, Jim, for accepting that. We appreciate that. And, okay. And I think at the last meeting, Jim had an opportunity to introduce himself and talk a little bit about his background, but we didn't have everybody here then.
Well,
Are you guys?
I'd like to hear.
I was listening to it on video.
Okay. Well, Jim, just give us a high-level overview of your experience and
Well, I started as in aviation as a line boy at Torrance Municipal Airport and went on to do some, went through college. I have a degree from Claremont McKenna College in California. I was flying while I was in college, accumulating hours. Went to work for an FPO for a period of time, then went to work for Braniff International in 1973. After their demise, I got in the early stages of People Express, which at that point was a startup. They merged with Continental, which merged with United, and then I went down to South America and worked for Cope Airlines. And I've had various management positions from Director of Flight Operations at Continental to Managing Director of Flight Operations at United to Vice President of Flight Operations at Copa. So that's my aviation background. And for me, the most interesting thing is that I own a Cessna 195, and it's in a hangar, and I'm starting to learn how to fly it.
I've heard this beautiful airplane.
It
that you-
is
Yes.
beautiful.
All right.
I know that one.
Well, we're very glad to have you in the vice chair position.
Thank you, thank you.
And we've already been working pretty good together, I think, with myself and Jim, making sure he gets the minutes and invitations and stuff. Okay, any questions for Jim from anyone? Okay, good. Welcome aboard. Introduction of the assistant airport manager.
Yep, I'll start briefly. As you know, I started with the city as the airport manager back in January. It was about a month later, Adam gave notice, and he's happily settling into his new role in Alberta, Canada. I just talked to him yesterday, and he's very happy, and his family's doing well. Speaking for all the staff, we're grateful for all his hard work and dedication over the past couple of years, and I wish him the best in the Great White North. For the few months that I spent with Adam, it was apparent that the job of running an airport as busy and as dynamic as ours is not a one-man show. It takes a team. We're very fortunate to have Tammy as our airport administrative assistant and contract administrator. I found her to be a very valuable asset to our team. And with that in mind, I want to introduce Jacob Cosette. He'll tell you a little bit about himself, but I can tell you he's jumped right in and hit the ground running. And very pleased that he's here, and welcome, and let you say a few words about yourself.
Afternoon, everyone. I've met most of you in the room, but for those of you who haven't, I'm Jacob Cosat, like you said. I've been around the area for a good long while, and flown out of New Smyrna, and I'm also an AMP that has worked at various flight schools around here. And I got my MBA from Riddle just recently, finished that. So I love all the aspects of it. I've worked in the research side, maintenance side, and obviously the flight side. So I've done some corporate flying, TBMs and Pilatus. So I've been around the block a little bit for my age. I love it. I'm excited to jump in here in New Smyrna and see if I can make a difference.
Well, welcome aboard. We're very glad to have you. I know
Thank you.
Arvin and Tammy are very glad to have you. Okay.
Happy to.
Any questions for Jacob?
What are your initial assignments?
So far, I've kind of been just kind of jumping in on anything I can to help Arvin complete whatever mission he's got going for either the day or for long term. I've just immediately just been helping put out some fires that we've had some cranes come up, and I've been kind of working with the county and the city with making sure that things get taken care of day to day, and then been working on some long term tasks. So yeah, it's been fun so far, and also helped clean up some of the files so we can, make things more efficient around, and so everyone can, anyone that comes in there for questions or just for general information, it's a lot easier to find stuff, so it's not as much of a task,
Okay, very good. Can you scroll it up a little bit, Tammy? All right, Arvin, we're going to turn it over to you for a while, I think, with airport managers' comments and updates.
Yes, thank you. So I'd like to just kind of give you all a little bit of an update as to kind of where we stand overall with all of our projects. I had a little PowerPoint, but unfortunately PowerPoint wasn't working, so this is a PDF, so excuse my scrolling. We met Jacob already. Going into capital improvement projects, as you know, or probably if you're not aware, since our last AAB meeting, and almost out 2.5 years, T-Hangar H is complete. We had many roadblocks, some of which I'm sure you're very aware of, including a pandemic, but there was many others. At the last minute, we were required to install a fire monitoring system, which was about a $30,000 last minute wrench that got thrown into everything. I believe it was in February, we got the CO and tenants began moving in. It's now fully occupied except for one hangar, which still has some punch list items to do. We met with the contractor last week. We're down to about 5 things that we need. One of them being probably the largest item still outstanding is the door seals on the bottom of the hangars, which is a very important part. The supplier that was supposed to supply these is actually having some ongoing issues. So we're looking at a possible different seal at the bottom. But other than that, everything has been pretty much wrapped up.
What's the feedback from the folks that have moved in?
It's a lot of them are still concerned because we don't have the door seals at the bottom.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest one. There's also some little quirks. We've had to adjust some of the hangar doors because they didn't line up properly, so they were scraping as they were opening. It's not. I wouldn't say they're 100%. Everyone's not 100% thrilled. We do have a couple that we're still working through.
Okay. Are any of our folks in the new hangar H?
I am, yeah.
Okay.
It's great.
Great.
It's I agree with the door seals. There is debris that's blown into the hangar, and it's all right. I get my exercise sweeping it, but that would be helpful. And then the other thing I worry about with hangars are insects. And that's just the potential for contamination in the airplane is always a problem, and anything that could be done in terms of fumigation to keep the bugs out of there, I think would be helpful.
Okay, very good. Thank
Also
you.
the grass. When you mow your lawn. When you
What was
mow the
that?
lawn- When you mow the lawn over there.
Oh, mow the grass? Sure.
Yeah, the grass shoots in.
Well, oh, I got you, yeah,
That would be nice. No grass.
no grass.
Okay,
Next up is our Taxiway Charlie project. It is substantially complete. In fact, the only thing left outstanding is a little bit of sod that they laid. We aren't sure that it's going to make it. It's not looking too good. Just the south side, by the south T-hangers, there's a little bit of sod that's, it's got some green in it. We're giving it just a little bit more time, but we may end up having to go back to the contractor and have them redo the sod. There's also a spot on Taxiway Charlie just south of 1129, so about where my cursor is, where some hydraulic fluid was spilled. We're just giving that a little bit more time. We should probably reinspect this week and see if it's deteriorated at all in the 2 weeks that it's just a small little area. And we still are holding, we haven't set the final payment yet. So those are the two outstanding items. Otherwise, you can see a little bit here, the new geometry. In fact, here's a screenshot of them while they were paving on the north side. There was very few issues throughout the 5-month-long project overall. We had a few issues at the tail end. There were some runway markings that weren't very clear, and so we had to go out there after we had initially opened the runway. We had some questions. Some people at night as they were coming off runway 11, exiting to the south or to the north. There was the exit markings weren't as clear because they were half rate. Normally they don't want to put the full rate paint on there until the asphalt is cured. But they went ahead and did that because of the issues that we were having with people feeling a little disoriented, because with the new geometry, it actually changed the exit point just a little bit. You show you a before and after shot here. That's actually the approach end of 20. You may remember, if I have a shot here, that there was a lot of asphalt here, that's now been removed. And that's the hopes with that was to just remove some of the confusion that might occur with all the surface that was here before. Here's a before shot and after. So you could see this geometry changed, as you can see here. And then clearly here, the approach end, see here of 20, all that's been removed. And then a lot of this asphalt here from this old runway, I'm sorry, no longer a runway. What happened there? Looks like I could totally close my, Yeah, I clicked it. Oh, here we go. Thank you. So all this unnecessary asphalt has been removed. This is the future run-up area here. I'll get into it a little bit later, but when we do our Taxiway Alpha project, this run-up area here will be redesigned as well. So with the removal of these surfaces, the goal is to eliminate some confusion, because we have had aircraft line up on this old runway in the past thinking that it was still active when it looked like this. And so we're just hoping to eliminate any confusion with that. Let's see if I have anything else. Also, with Taxiway Charlie, we took the opportunity, because there's been so many changes, as you can see here by this little diagram. We're updating the airport diagram with the FAA. We've submitted information to them so that hopefully on the next update, you'll see the new and improved depictions of what's changed. Everything here in blue is actually different than what's on the current airport diagram. Pavement added, let's see, starting from the north at the top, all this pavement was removed. T-hangars demolished, and this area is currently has turf on it. Scheduled to be ramp space at some point. This area has been removed, so you could kind of see all the changes that have taken place. So it was high time for us to update the airport diagram.
Okay. Any comments from anyone on that?
As you progress through all these changes, are you careful to be in line with the 10-year plan, or what deviations have you had from that?
Absolutely. Everything we've done has been in line with the master plan. There's been nothing added since the most recent update in 2019. And there's no plans at this point to create a new master plan. We're following that.
Okay.
Any questions on that? Or? Moving on to our wildlife hazard program, or hazard management program, I'm sorry. This was recently approved by the FAA, so we are now looking at the implementation of this. We just recently, I think it was last week, had a coyote on runway 220 or near runway 220. We were able to go out and locate it, and it saw the vehicle approaching from a ways off and ran into the woods. So it's something that we're going to be paying a lot more attention to. That's one of the reasons Jacob, that's one of the things he and I have discussed, is the implementation of this new program. And we'll probably have more information on that by our next meeting.
Well, the coyotes are definitely dominating it, aren't they? 54 events, is that correct?
Yes.
Now, the cat is not a feral cat, that's a big cat.
You know what? That's a great question. I believe it was just a wild cat. It was just something that was spotted, from my understanding.
Okay.
What about,
In the study that was done, that's what.
what about the area out there that has was it the turtles that we had out there? What's happening with that?
Well,
They were going to fence them in or whatever? Are they going to move them or what?
No, there are many turtles, as you know, throughout the airport. The gopher tortoises.
Yeah.
They're protected, and we have marked them. We mark their nests when we find them. We haven't found any so far. When our wildlife biologists determined that at this point they don't see them to be a hazard, they're well away from runways. But as we mow the grass, we continually keep an eye on it. Jacob and I make weekly, we're inspecting the entire perimeter of the fence, along with our guys who are inspecting the airfield every day. But we ourselves inspect everything, and we're seeing the majority of the nests that I've seen are well away from runways.
Okay, just checking.
There is plans in our 20-year plan to some point put up a wildlife fence. That's a significant cost, and it's not a high priority at this time compared to some of our other items.
I don't know why I thought there was another slide behind that one. Is other than the wildlife fence, is there anything that can be done relative to these coyotes? 54 events. And what period of time is this? 12 months. Okay.
Yes.
So in a 12-month period, there was 54. And these are all just sightings? Is that what these are that are reported to you guys, or the tower logs them, or?
This information was collected, I believe. This was, reported, yes, to the FAA.
Okay. Okay.
I have seen coyotes during the day along the taxiway to go to 220 and just sitting there and not running away. They just sit there and look at you.
They don't appear to be afraid of aircraft.
No.
They're very used to and accustomed to the aircraft. When they see our vehicle approaching, that's what scared this one off that we saw the other day. From a long ways away, he started running off.
Yeah, They're not afraid. We've had a couple times where they've walked across the ramp and just, walk out towards the woods. There's a den on that one clump of woods between us and the sports complex. They're free game if we see them, right?
No comment.
Okay.
So the only thing that we're still waiting on relative to wildlife hazards is the wildlife fence? And how's that, is that going to have anything to do with coyotes? If they're already on the property and they have a den in the
And the other issue, well, so on the perimeter fence, what we see a lot of times on the outside perimeter fence, we'll see they just dig under the fence. So the wildlife fence, that, from my understanding, is it's more or less over in a different area. I believe it's around the interior part of is that correct? Is that your understanding as well, Tammy?
Yes.
So I don't think it's going to help with the coyote situation. To answer your question.
So right now, there's nothing else we can do other than people be aware that they're there.
From my understanding and from being here as long as I have, is that, and Gary, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but that there's sightings of coyotes, but there hasn't been any, they appear to stay out of the way.
Correct. Yeah, all the experiences that we've had, never had an issue or an incident.
Okay. Okay.
I'd like to talk a little bit about our upcoming projects. The most recent, we'll go line by line here. The airport administrative and maintenance facility, I don't know how much we talked about that last time we were here, I don't remember, but the project is on hold. At the time that we went to do this project, we determined that the construction costs were going to be significantly over budget. And the decision was made at that time to reinvest that money, to give that grant money back to the FDOT, and in case they needed it somewhere else. In fact, they gave it back to us and allowed us to pursue a property acquisition, which I'll talk about in just a minute. We still are very interested in doing that project, and we very much need that. However, if we were able to redirect that money to something that is actually going to continue to generate more revenue for us for the foreseeable future, so we felt that was a more wise decision at this time. The environmental assessment for runway 1129, again, that's on hold. Understanding is that we cannot fund that report, or we cannot fund that study until the airport can show 500 plus critical design group 2. So that would be mid-size aircraft, so King Air 200 citations, mid-size jets, mid-size. We're not at that point. We're at like maybe 200, 250. If we can show sustained for a year, 500 plus operations a year, then they will look at that. But for the time being, that's on hold.
Okay. I didn't remember that being a part of the discussion when we were talking about doing the environmental assessment, that we had to have that particular number of those operations. So
It's something I think that recently came about as Adam was, as I was learning from Adam in the last few months.
Where does that policy come from? Is that FAA headquarters or what?
Yes.
okay.
The April terminal infill and T-hanger removal, as you know, these T-hangers B and C have been torn down. I don't know if I have a slide here for that. I don't think I do. Those T-hangers have been demolished. We have a plan in place to expand that main apron. We have recently found in our master plan also a plan to expand the main apron. And so when we're talking about where money should be spent, we're talking with the users of the airport and making sure that we use that money as wisely as we can. The backup weather equipment for air traffic control.
Wait,
Sure.
I just happened to read it. It said construction of new pavement for the area where the T hangars, B and C hangars have been demolished.
Correct.
But it's not pavement.
No.
It's turf.
Correct. So in between the demolishment of those hangars and anything else being put in, they put turf in there just so it wouldn't erode. So that's still on the book. That still can be done. But when we went for the design, what has been planned is the design of a terminal apron infill in that spot. When we looked at the construction costs, which is probably now higher than what it was, which was 1.4 million, we said, are we sure that's where we want a ramp? Is that where it'll make the most sense for the users and for the airport when it's going to cost that much money? So we looked at our 20-year plan and we found another plan that was actually for the expansion of the main apron ramp, which there is some congestion on the main ramp and there are some opportunities there for us to potentially look at that. So we're looking at both. And we could certainly discuss that more at the workshop in greater detail.
So the turf is temporary?
Yes. Unless it's determined that an alternate plan for ramp expansion and spending those dollars would be wiser at this time.
Well, I think the 10-year plan was also had an entrance on the north side there and more buildings off in the trees, and to build that up more. So, that's way down the road.
I think including the admin building, if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken, yes. So that space is there, and I'm certain that the best decision will be made. We're just not making a huge rush we want to make sure we make the wisest decision. The backup weather for the air traffic control tower, we recently had put a bid out for this, and we didn't get any responses. We went back to the FAA and said, okay, can we wrap this up in another project? And they said, well, we prefer you to not do that. So we're looking at our other options right now to see if we can bypass the bid process, but at this time, that's on hold.
Was that the AWAS?
It's a backup AWAS, yes. Our next project, we're currently awaiting FAA approval. We've submitted a request to the FAA for design and bid for reconstruction of portions of Taxiway Alpha. And like I have here, we were trying to include the backup weather equipment, but they've asked us to do that. And this also will allow us to install an additional windsock, which is very much needed at the airport. We have one primary windsock in the middle of the field, like we recently discovered with our project, our Charlie project. 1129, we had the power out to 1129 because we didn't want anybody to think that the runway was on. We didn't want somebody to accidentally click the PCAL, the pilot control lighting, and for those lights to come on. So we had shut the power off. Unfortunately, the lights for that windsock are attached to that runway. So we had no windsock there for 2 months at night. So we're excited that we're going to be able to have that additional windsock tied in with this. And we're hopeful that we'll hear back from the FAA shortly and be able to kick this project off. The schedule is for it to be designed this year and constructed next year, next fiscal year. So that would be sometime after October 2022.
So help me understand, the backup weather, AWAS, was in the line item above, now it's in this one again. Is this where you're really trying to get it into the...
So it was a mistake on my part to have it in both places when I was making these notes. Originally, it had its own line. It was, and we just recently, as recently I think as maybe 3 weeks ago, had a bid, or a month ago had a bid, which no one showed up for. And we feel that it's because it's a small project. If you look at it, it's only $60,000. And we felt there's a lot of other projects out there, and there's very few vendors, very few contractors who do this type of work. Yeah. So we felt they were probably too busy. They saw it. They just, they overlooked it somehow. So we were thinking, well, if we tie it in with a larger project, we'll require the contractor to do it as part of the larger contract. So That's
Okay.
why you see it two places.
Okay.
Fuel farm improvements. So that the design, as you may be aware, let's see here. So that was approved by the commission, the design and bid. So the design work is scheduled to begin the first week of June. This project includes the engineering, design, and bidding services, and it's related to upgrading the existing fuel farm facility. We're adding a new 12,000 gallon above ground storage tank. And just as a refresher, you may be aware that we have significant capacity issues due to the fact that we get loads of fuel in 8,500 gallon quantities. And we're using about 8,500. And we use about 8,500 a week. So in a week's time, we're balancing, trying to make sure we have enough room for a new load, because if we're, 3,000 gallons, I don't have room, I can't fit the fuel load. And if I go a little bit past that 3,000 gallons, we run out of fuel. So this is going to be a very much welcome upgrade for the airport and for all the users. We're also taking the opportunity to possibly change out the Jet A hose to make it a little bit longer with a longer reel. There's some requirements by the National Fire Protection Association has come out with some new requirements that are needed, that are updated. So this is going to be included in this upgrade. We've got some, I should have had a picture here, but around the fuel farm, there's a containment area, and there's also like a loading rack where aircraft are fueled and also fuel trucks are fueled, and where we take delivery. That's concrete pad, and it's not wide enough. So we're going to actually look to actually broaden that. We'll be incorporating a relaxation vessel into the avgas system, which isn't currently there. And we're also, probably one of the most important and exciting things is that we are going to be able to design into the system a way for backup generators to be, because currently, if we have a storm, we have a power outage, it would be very difficult for us to get fuel. And as we know, airports are, during a crisis or, a storm, the ability to be able to take service people either trying to deliver aid or bring aid is important. So we want to focus on making sure that we're able to run even when we don't have power.
So what do you do when you have too much fuel, and what do you do when you're out of it? I mean, are these long periods of time, or?
So we work very, very hard to make sure we don't run out of fuel. And I won't jinx us, but we look at it every day, sometimes multiple times a day. And we're constantly monitoring. One of the things that we're also hoping to have with this new system is the ability to have alerts when fuel quantities reach certain levels. Now we're constantly looking and manually guessing, okay, we have a whole calculation that we use that's determined based on how much we're pumping a day, and we're also looking at, so this will help us, but what we do when we run out, we don't run out. That's what we shoot for.
So what's the timeline again on the 12,000 gallon?
Yes, so design begins the first week of June. Design will be completed this year, and we hope to begin construction after the new fiscal year, so sometime after October 1.
So what do you do when you can't get all this 8,500 pounds of fuel or gallons of fuel? Do you just take what you can and send them away?
There has been times when we will come down to the day before and we say, okay, we didn't sell as much as we'd like. So we'll tell them, hey, we can only take 7,000 gallons of fuel or 7,500 gallons of fuel. Unfortunately, that's not beneficial. We try not to do that because the freight's going to remain the same. The freight cost to bring it in is going to remain the same if I get 5,000 gallons of fuel, or it still costs the same amount to bring it here.
Or in the past, we've been lucky enough to call Ormond, and
Yes.
Ormond says, yeah, I can take a couple thousand
That's a good
gallons.
point. We do that. It's a great point, Gary. Thank you. We have done that as well. Yes. Split a load with another airport that's the same, uses the same fuel provider.
Okay, that's good. Good progress. Hopefully that'll That'll get kicked off at the end of the year this year.
Airfield marking and signage rehab. So this is, let me see if I have a slide for this. I'm sorry, you know what? I just was reading my list. This is taxiway Alpha. Did we talk about that? Yeah. So taxiway Alpha, this is a little drawing here of the taxiway Alpha. As you can see, this is the new FAA. We've gotten a lot of comments about the shape of the run-up area. I know it looks very interesting, but this is the new FAA design. This is what they want to see for a run-up area. It's going to be interesting to maintain that. But the taxiway Alpha rehab project will run from the main ramp up through here. So you see they're changing, fixing some geometry here and just rehabbing it. So it'll be new and extend the life of that taxiway for years to come.
What are the shapes that are on this run-up area? What is that? Can you explain that a little better?
Sure, let me try to
Or
zoom in a
more.
little bit for you. Here, let's see.
Are those concrete pads or?
Yeah, so there's separation in between each, so the aircraft will pull in, you know, and be doing a run-up, and there's separation between each one.
Okay.
So there's actually concrete between each one. Or I'm sorry, there'll be grass between each one.
Oh, so that's turf between the concrete
Yes.
pads for each run-up area? Okay. And those are big enough that you can taxi onto them and turn around?
Yes, they're pretty good size. This is a pretty,
So those oval things are grass?
yes.
It seems like it would be simpler for it to be continuous pavement.
Yes, everyone feels very similar to that.
So, but this is the FAA's new requirement, is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's my understanding.
It doesn't make sense to me in terms of the variable services there. Is that an absolute requirement, a hard requirement? They won't approve it unless,
I don't believe so. Jim, is that right? We're talking about the run-up area, the new design, the geometry, and how it. Here, I'll go back to that slide here. How it's broken up in between each one. We're saying how that doesn't make sense, but my understanding is that's the new FAA requirement, right? To have it set up like that. Yes. And since they're, we have to do.
With the mixture of airplanes we have, I can easily see somebody dropping a tire off the pavement and getting
Yep.
stuck. And whether there's damage or not, it's still a big inconvenience.
I'd suggest we look into that requirement.
It needs to be made a little wider.
What a 195 needs to negotiate that area, and what a 172 is dramatically different. And you throw in a medium-sized twin, the piston twin that needs to do the run-up. You need one big piece of concrete.
I agree.
I do too.
We'll make sure we have more information for you at the
Right,
next
next meeting.
Yep.
Okay, so you're taking an action to go follow up on that and get some clarification on whether this is hard and fast or whether we can have some opportunity to make sense out of it. Okay.
Going on to our, let's see here. Airport signage project. So scrolling back up to, let's see. Yeah, so the airfield marking and signage rehab. So the marking is complete. The signage scope has increased. We found that we were well under budget when we were completing the marking portion of the project. And so we have the opportunity to either give the money back or to replace maybe some signs that we wouldn't have. So we've had an opportunity to replace about, I think when I counted last, it was about 50 signs on the airfield that are in various stages. Some of them need desperate help, and some of them aren't as bad. but we're trying to standardize the signs a little bit more so that, you know, we don't have different brands. We have all different kinds of brands out there. It becomes difficult to keep inventory and do, you know, service, things like that. So that is scheduled to, we just got that approved, and I think they're going to be going out for bid shortly.
Yeah,
June.
Bid by June? You think we're going to get some bids by June?
Yes.
It'll start in June.
The bid process
Start,
starts in
okay.
June, yes. Moving on to noise abatement. So I have the program, I know we've talked a little bit in the past about Vertower. I'm not sure if there's any interest in seeing a short demo of how it works, but we are using it. We've been using it now for the past several months. And it's been interesting to see, and it's been a helpful tool for us to determine, you know, when there's a complaint or when there's an issue, we can look up and see what exactly is going on and try to help better educate ourselves and the public sometimes on exactly what's happening. And also it's opportunity to go to a flight school and just remind them about our voluntary noise abatement program.
That was one of the questions I was going to bring up later about that, because we've had it since October last year, and I guess this October it'll be up for renewal, and whether it is beneficial, cost-wise and so forth.
It's a tool that we use every day, if not multiple times a day. If you like, I could bring it up on the screen here for just a brief moment and show you. This is today. This is today's activity from 12 a.m. until, well, I ran this report about 1:30, so it's not exactly current, but we found it to be very accurate. It's just, as you can see, I clicked on a particular flight track, and it'll show you everything that aircraft's done, including ground movements, everything in green. And if I click on, you can see these little dots. That's a particular snapshot in time, and it'll tell you the tail number, what it was, what time it was, what altitude, what speed. Our understanding from the software developer is that because it's relying on GPS, the location relative to the ground is within a couple feet. The location relative to the altitude can be off by a couple hundred feet. So it's not exact. But it is exact in the track. Every test that I've done, in fact, you can see here when I zoom in on the ground, you can see the aircraft actually parking. This is just a Google Earth, you know, it's overlaid Google Earth. You can see the aircraft taxiing, and where they end up parking is exactly where the images of aircraft are parked. So it's been a very helpful tool. So if somebody calls us and says, for example, hey, I've got an aircraft flying over my house, we plug in their address, and I won't do that now, but we plug in their address, it'll show the address, and then we can search the times, narrow it down, and find out what's happening. A lot of times, I've found this helpful to somebody who says, hey, there's a plane flying over and over my house, and a lot of times that may not be the case, or it may be the case that it's doing exactly what it should be doing, you know? So it's not this, before we had a program like this, it was just, we don't know, you know? We didn't know. I mean, somebody could complain, and we either take their word for it, or we say, you know, we don't know what you're talking. This is a little bit more fact-based, so it's helpful. And it's been a good tool for me to remind all the flight schools. I've been attending some instructor meetings. I've been attending safety briefings that we do every week.
Do you take an image like this with you when you go to Epic or any of the others and point out to them that, hey, you guys are shortcutting right across the middle of Inlet Shores? Because that's what you see there with a few.
Right.
There's obviously hundreds of tracks there, and 2 or 3 cut across, you know, the Inlet Shores area, but they're a pretty vocal group.
What I've found for the most part is that showing this to people helps build awareness. The challenge has been, Epic and others have been great partners. because they, you know, and they're right here. There's somebody we can reach out to. We're having a little bit more difficulty. It's taken a little bit longer to reach those one-off flight, you know, there's a lot of little flight schools that maybe have one airplane, two airplanes, and some of them come and go. You know, like today there's a flight school and tomorrow it won't be here. You know, I've seen a lot of flight schools come and go. So, for example, this aircraft here, I just saw this just now. So I don't know, I don't recognize that tail number. So we'll have to go and find out. But educating, you know, I feel like a lot of our job with this has been almost like a little marketing campaign. It's been building awareness because this is voluntary. It's not, we can't sit here and dictate to the aircraft, you cannot turn left over this community. That's not the case. The case is that sometimes they are going to need to. But what we can do is say, we're part of a community, and we want to be good neighbors to our neighbors. We live here, we work here, and we know that they do too. We know that these pilots, the vast majority of them, they're here for a reason. We need pilots. You know, we have a pilot shortage, so we're not trying to come down on too hard, but we also want to be good neighbors.
So you have the ability then for the individual operators that this is a cross-country destination for them or whatever, and they make this track that we're seeing here across Endless Shores. You have the ability to go contact them?
Yes, we have their registration information, so generally you can look up with a little bit of homework, you can find out who they are.
Okay.
And search.
Hasn't there been less noise complaints, or is it still about the same?
Well,
Because I know this is a fantastic piece of equipment. I mean, the proof is in the image.
the jury is still out, I think, on long term. In the short term, I've seen improvements, but I know there's been people here for many years that tackled this and had difficulty. So I'm not going to say I have all the answers, but what I could say is what we tell the residents and what we tell is that we're committed to helping get the message out, to continue to help educate people, to educate the pilots, and educate the public as well on the fact
we
that...
sat on it for a long time, and Adam was reluctant to go and contact anyone because of concerns about the data and people coming and wanting all the data themselves.
Right.
But I think it's really good that you're starting to use it now, and you're starting to contact people and point out to them. I think, hopefully, you guys went through this for years. Maybe if this is somehow communicated within the pilot community that we have this tool and we're using it, and that might help. Is that what you're trying to do? Is that the direction?
Absolutely. Anytime anybody has a question they want to know or they want to call us, you know, we understand. Certainly, I want to be sympathetic. I understand that the noise issue is very important to some people. I hear it too. You know, I live nearby myself. So, but we also recognize that the airport was here. It's been here, as we had talked earlier, for 75 years. It brings a tremendous amount of, it's a tremendous economic engine for the community, for the aviation community. You know, the FDOT recognizes this as a very important airport in the aviation system, in the Florida system. And while we want to respect the rights of the pilots, and we want to respect the rights of the citizens. So we have a voluntary noise abatement program, and we want to, my goal and my mission is to help educate the pilots so that they understand that we do have limitations. We're not telling you what to do. We're not telling you you can't fly, but please be respectful of the hours that you do touch and goes, and please be respectful of the days you do touch and goes, and please be respectful of the neighborhood. I have to say, you know, Epic, we talked about Epic before. Epic has gone out, they made a video that educates not only the pilots, but also the public. I think it's a great video.
It is.
And I appreciate, you know, them taking it upon themselves to do that. So, you know, we'll just continue the hard work, and we just ask for patience from the residents as we try to continually to make this better. We know the noise is not going to go away 100%. This is an airport. That's what it is. If it was a marina, there would be boats. This is an airport, there are airplanes. But we will do our best to make sure that we respect the lives and the enjoyment of life in this city.
How much time a week do you spend looking this stuff up? Sorry.
Probably right now it's a little too much, but I think as we get our hands around it and as we understand it a little bit better, I think that will go down.
Regarding the other help for the, I guess, the pilots coming in and out from other areas, on the signage project, there are going to be new signs that talk about paying attention to the noise abatement, and they're going to be strategically placed for the different runways, especially, I think 1-1 is another one, because 1-1 seems to be, like this week, for example, the reason it's kind of heightened this week is because of the wind coming from the south, so you have, you know, with that in mind, along with, we had Shane come by yesterday and explain what was going on also with the RNAV approach that was being used. So it was kind of, tower was kind of put in between a rock and a hard place as well. And so obviously safety of flight is number one. And with that, with the signs that are going to be put in place, that should help, we believe, with some of these out of the area pilots, you know, pay attention to that, because otherwise, you know, they may not think about it, especially if they're student pilots, to really look forward and pay attention to noise abatement as much as our local traffic, because, you know, as we've seen lately, Epic's been doing a great job of, you know, with minus one or two that come here and there, but they've been doing a great job. It's just more or less in some of these smaller flight schools, like Arvin said.
Okay.
What's the time lapse of what's on this monitor?
That's a, excuse me, that's from 12 a.m. today to about 1:30 is when I ran this report. So if I ran it again, there would be more data that would pop up. I can zoom out and show you that these.
Now,
So that was,
what you're showing us now, I assume that's at any altitude over the airport?
So that's below 10,000 feet. So I can change this to 1,200. Oops, I'm sorry. I want to go negative. Okay, 12. Why did it do that? So that's everything below 1,200 feet.
Okay.
And you can I can change it to even, you know, let's say 800. I can also, you know, I could select other activities if I want to see just aircraft that are on certain ramps or certain runways. The other tool that this has is the ability to look at historical data and the ability to, for example, pull up how many times an aircraft flew through a certain particular zone. So, and I won't take up but it's a great tool. Whether or not it is going to actually help us long term, I hope so, I think so, but time will tell.
So this just looks down vertically, it doesn't look horizontally?
No, it's getting altitude. Let me go back to the map. It's GPS, so it's based on, for example, here's a live view. This is an aircraft. I won't, since it's probably, I won't, but it's currently taxiing on the taxiway. So if I showed its altitude, it'll show its altitude and its position. However, we're being told that the altitude might be off a little, but the position in horizontally is as it relates to the ground is accurate.
I was sort of thinking of Google Earth, where you have the street view, you know,
Oh, I
which is a
understand.
horizontal view.
Right. No, this is just a.
It's just
It's fixed.
looking down from
Correct.
the top.
You can zoom out or in, but no, you can't change the angle. Any other questions about noise abatement or bird tower?
well, I think that adding the signs with the signage project is a good idea. We just have to keep looking for those kinds of opportunities to communicate this, that we're doing it and we're looking at it, and continue to do what we can. There's, I can say that in my view, the social media is continuing to heat up on the noise issue from the airport, and everything that you can do within reason and within the work scope and your attention to safety and operations and everything else. You obviously got to do that, but I think it's good that we've got the tool and it's up and working now, and you're showing it to people.
Maybe you ought to, once the signs get up, maybe we ought to have the media, the newspaper come out, shoot some signs, do an article on it stating that, now we've got new signs to try to make the noise a little less. And we also have new equipment, because the public doesn't probably know about this equipment, only pilots, we're only the ones that are going to know about it. And give them a little history, give them a little, article about it, show some pictures and stuff like that. At least that will help some. It won't stop it, but, knowledge is power, and if the public has it,
That's opening a Pandora's box.
well, you either do it one way or the other way, Keep your mouth shut and let them complain a lot, or let them at least see something.
I would add, we do have some signs now. What we've done with the signage project is not only add a couple signs related to noise abatement, but we've also strategically placed them better. So we felt like where they're positioned now, somebody's just going to taxi by them. They're not going to really see them. But we've positioned them next to a hold short. So when
Right.
somebody's actually waiting to take off, that's not that we're not trying to distract somebody, but it's there in addition to, the sign that says, the runway or whatever. But on the other side will be something that just kind of brings their eye, because they're probably going to sit there for, at least a moment. So, but right before they take off, they kind of have that in their mind, like, hey, I'm about to take off, and, so anyway.
Well, we appreciate everything you guys are doing, and I know personally the volume of calls that you're getting. I see it on our Facebook group in my community. But I think this is really cool, though. I think that we're actually able to see it, and you can actually get a better idea of the huge volume of traffic that is following the guidelines, but those outliers figure out a way to work on them a little bit.
I would actually you brought up a good point, if I could just add real quickly, that what we found in studying this, that the vast majority of aircraft are doing everything they can to avoid the communities that we've asked them to avoid and to follow the noise abatement program.
I found the data I saw showed about 1% or less.
It's less than
Okay.
1% generally, and that less than 1% it could be, air traffic control, tell them to turn left, or traffic. I mean, there's so many more reasons than someone might be aware. Someone just thinks, well, why don't they just fly where they're supposed to fly? They're really not thinking about what's on the ground. They're really not thinking about that as much as they've got to be focused on flying the airplane.
Okay. That's good. That's good information.
So moving on, if we don't have any other questions about that, I want to briefly talk about our recent RSAT meeting held here in the chamber just a few weeks ago. And I wanted to just touch on the recent runway excursions, just to update everybody on since our last meeting. On January 30th, we had a Sea Ray that veered off the west side of runway 2, following a left main gear failure. Nobody was hurt. The aircraft remained there overnight and then was removed the next morning. The incursion, the most recent, this was in September 8th, 21. This was an aircraft taxiing from Baker, taxiway Echo, to runway 7. And there was some miscommunication. He said runway 11, taxi Echo, Bravo, hold short. And then that was ATC, and then the readback was 11 Echo, Bravo, hold short, 11 at Echo. So he proceeded to cross runway 7 without clearance to cross runway 7. The FAA considered this classification D. So there was a 172 that had just landed on that runway, but they were at taxi speed. So that was one. The second one was we had an RV-6 taxiing from the South T hangars, gave him a clearance. The pilot read back the clearance correctly, but instead of turning left at Delta, crossing runway 29, he continued straight and crossed runway 2 in front of a landing 172. And then most recently, we had an issue. This was during the construction phase of Taxiway Charlie. A contractor, they had to go, the light at X, which is placed on the runway to indicate visually to aircraft flying in the area that that runway is closed. It has to be refueled, and the contractor wanted to go to the light at X at the opposite end of the runway. And the controller cleared him, saying, proceed as requested, but remain clear of runway 20 at all times. And he just said, proceeding, thank you, and he crossed, and there was a 172 that was actually cleared for takeoff and was in the process of taking off. And we did a safety stand down with the contractor, pulled everybody off the job, stopped work, retrained, and had great support and interaction from ETC. Came down and we did a whole debrief on that. And from that, we determined that we also were recognized from this incident that we need to do better internally on training. This was a contractor. However, we determined that we wanted to take a new look and a fresh look at our training for our employees who drive on the airport. So try to take advantage of a situation and take any good that we can from it. But we definitely have had more incidents recently than we would like. So I think we had a good RSAT meeting held by Jim, Air Traffic Control Manager, and looking forward to a safer year.
I'm not sure how Adam did it, but he got me an invite to the prior RSAT meeting, and then I didn't get best value out of participating in that. So if you guys could help me get notification when they're going to be held again,
Absolutely.
I'd very much like to be a part of that.
Absolutely. We'll make sure that everyone's invited. Okay.
Were there any actions taken as a result of those events other than the training focus that you just mentioned?
So I can't speak to action taken from these two. I know that this one is still under investigation by the FAA. They've given a preliminary finding. They've issued a preliminary finding, which was that there was some negligence on both the controller and the contractor. Mm-hmm. They said the contractor had a responsibility to, since the controller said remain clear of the runway, there was some responsibility there on the contractor that he didn't remain clear. However, I think the ground controller not being specific, because usually the language is hold short, and they didn't say that. So
I guess
there was
I was questioning whether the FAA issued any RSAT action items as a result of any of these events to what we already had open.
I'm not aware.
Okay.
There were also several open action items from previous RSAT meetings, which have all been remedied. One of the action items from 2017 was adding additional markings to better mark the hotspots. That was done in this previous markings signage project in 2021. Need for additional wind cone. So that was determined in 2020. And as I stated earlier, that will be included with the Taxiway Alpha Rehab project scheduled to begin fiscal year now 2023. And then finally, in 2021, an issue was brought about at the runway safety action meeting then, that we need to decommission or remove some of the decommissioned shoulder pavement, which I discussed earlier and showed you on the map how that's been removed. So all those items have been addressed or are in the process of being addressed. And that's all I have for my presentation.
The T-Hanger F rehabilitation.
Yes.
Has the grant been received for that and a date set?
Yes, so there was actually 2 items you just reminded me of. For some reason, I didn't have it in my notes, but they were just approved. So just this past Tuesday, 2 items were approved by the City Commission. One was the property acquisition for the Baker Aviation property. They approved that, and that has been, the signed grant, signed by us, has been returned, partially signed anyway, I should say, to the FDOT for a final review. Their attorneys will look it over. They will sign it and execute it and return it back to us, at which time then we can move forward with that property acquisition. And the second item that they approved was the T-Hanger F rehab design phase. So that is also, will be signed by the FDOT and returned to us, and we'll get a notice to proceed on that. And once we get the notice to proceed, design will begin, and hopefully we'll complete that. And that project will also begin, the construction we're hoping is scheduled and budgeted to begin fiscal year 2023.
2023.
Yes, which would be sometime after October 1st.
So the city commission approved that too?
Yes.
Oh, good. That's good.
Yeah, that's very much needed, as you probably know. So we're excited to get that underway.
What do you feel about the response from contractors when you put that bid out? Do you think that there's going to be interest in?
It is a smaller project. It is a smaller project in some ways.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. What was the estimate for that?
I think we were at about $500,400,000, but that number could have gone up since we wrote that. In fact, I'm sure it will.
Okay. Good.
Any other?
What is the situation with the 7 acres on the south side of the airport? I saw Chris here earlier and he left. Any movement there? Or?
Well, I can't give much information because we're in what is known as the cone of silence since it's underway. But if there are any questions about that, please contact. You can go on the website, the New Smyrna Beach, City of New Smyrna Beach website, and go to Procure Now, and you can find out. Or you can also contact Janet Vivian, who's in charge of purchasing, and she can speak more freely than I can.
I made a hand gesture, closing my mouth. Well, there should be an inquiry coming in on one of the lots. I know that. No.
Okay. Do we go back to the agenda from here, or is this?
Yes, absolutely. Here.
Okay.
I think we're done.
Okay. Board member comments. We'll start with you, Gary.
I've got nothing. The only thing I was going to ask was how we're doing on the empty lots on the southeast side of the airport, but I guess I won't be asking that question.
Right, you won't get an answer.
So I've got nothing.
Okay.
Well, I'm always concerned with safety and so forth. And again, you look for FOD 5 days a week, but the weekend, you don't have anybody looking for FOD. And is that still now the situation?
Yes, it is. Although we have, Jacob and I, we have added a third person, actually just prior to Jacob coming on board. We now have 3 maintenance workers. So we have early discussions about potentially rotating, which would have somebody here, throughout the weekend, because I have the same concerns. So there are some things we have to work through to do that, but we've had some early discussions on doing that very thing.
And I'd like to say, Jacob, welcome. And your credentials seem very good, and I hope you enjoy working at New Smyrna Beach.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it, and I'm excited to help where I can.
Over the years, have had some experience in dealing with the FAA, and when they gave me an answer I didn't particularly like, there were times where I wouldn't accept it. And I would, well, we've got to work with them, and they're certainly our partners, and they're an important element of the partnership. When you do see something that doesn't make sense, if we can help you out with that in terms of how we might go at them from a different direction or a different person, I guess my message is, if somebody in the medium level gives you an answer that doesn't make sense, we can certainly follow up on that and press the issue where it makes sense. And obviously, you've got to pick your fights. But I'm certainly willing to help you out, and I know a lot. We've got a lot of experience sitting here at the table and people that have approached that.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have nothing.
Nothing?
I already said what I needed to say.
Okay. Well, I just want to say to the team that, you know, with all the changes that happened and then Adam popped up and he's gone, you guys have done an awesome job, I think, stepping in and stepping up. I mean, you were hardly through the door when all that happened, plus everything else that was going on. So our congratulations to you, and our support for you is always there. So we appreciate everything you're doing, and we know the load that you're under with everything that is going on with the capital improvements and everything else that is happening right now. So you guys are doing a great job, and we appreciate it very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And I think I made all the comments I needed to during your presentation on the individual stuff, all right? But I probably will, if there's a convenient time, I'd like to come over and see some of this data on this VERT tower. I can just sit down for a little bit and go through some of that with you and see exactly what we can see there. I think
Would love that.
I'll give you a call sometime and we'll set that up. Okay. To you, Mr. Mitchell.
I hope the VERT tower can pinpoint the person who is keeping inlet shores in an uproar, and check into that run-up area. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Yes.
It seems more complicated
Yes,
than it should be.
yes.
Will do.
Okay. All right, very good. The next meeting date, Tammy?
My apologies, it is, I believe, July 27th.
I
We'll
think,
be right here at 2 o'clock.
okay.
July when?
27th.
Okay, I'll probably be gone, but I'm only an alternate, so it won't matter.
You're not only an alternate, Gary. Okay. Key man, right there. All right, based on that, I can adjourn now? Oh, need a motion to
I
adjourn?
make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
Second.
Then, you wanna pause
All right.
that?